When I was a child, I had a friend named Lucy. She was a neighborhood girl who would come over to my grandmother's house, which was where I lived at the time. There was a park by my house that had a deep creek next to it. I couldn't swim, so we always had to have an adult with us when we were near the creek. Lucy was a toxic friend, but I didn't know at the time. She would always threaten to stop being friends with me or stop talking to me if I didn't do what she wanted. She would always say that she deserved my toys and my family and friends more than I did. I didn't mind this, as I had a hard time making friends, and Lucy was one of my only friends. One night, Lucy came over and she said she was bored and wanted to go to the park. I told her my family was in the backyard and we had to have an adult with us to go, but she said she would leave and never come back if I didn't go to the park with her. I followed her and we went to the park. She walked right past the playground equipment to the creek, and I asked her what she was doing. She said she wanted to swim, and I told her I couldn't swim, and she called me a string of hurtful names, including weak, stupid, and an awful friend. This really hurt my 5-year-old self, so I started crying. This made her even angrier, and she told me something I'll never forget. "You're an awful child. Your family deserved me and not you." I was so confused and sad that I just ran home. I never saw her again, and I just thought she was so angry she really never spoke to me again. Now, about a year ago, my family was talking about my many imaginary friends, and my mom said my friend Lucy really creeped her out, because she was supposed to have a daughter before me who they wanted to name Lucy. My mother had a miscarriage, and Lucy was never born. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it's been years since those chilling nights. It started innocently enough, as many childhood tales often do, with an imaginary friend. But this wasn't your typical imaginary friend. This was something far more sinister, something that still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. His name was Isaac, or at least that's what I called him. I was around 7 years old when he first appeared. My parents had just moved us into an old house on the outskirts of town, a place with creaky floorboards and drafty corridors. I didn't have any friends yet, so I suppose my young mind conjured up Isaac as a companion. At first, Isaac seemed harmless enough. He would appear in my room at night, a shadowy figure lurking in the corners, whispering secrets only I could hear. He told me stories of faraway lands and adventures beyond my wildest dreams. But as the nights went on, Isaac's tales grew darker, his whispers turning into chilling murmurs that seemed to seep into my very soul. I tried to tell my parents about Isaac, but they dismissed him as a figment of my imagination, just a phase I would soon outgrow. But Isaac wasn't just a product of childhood fantasy. He was something far more real and sinister than they could ever imagine. As the weeks passed, Isaac's presence became more oppressive, his whispers more insistent. He would tell me things, horrible things that no child should ever hear. He spoke of death and despair, and of things lurking in the shadows waiting to consume me whole. I began to dread the night, knowing that when darkness fell, Isaac would come. I would lie in bed paralyzed with fear as he whispered his dark secrets into the silence of my room. And then, one night, he asked me to do something unspeakable, something that would change everything. I won't repeat what he asked of me, for even now the memory fills me with dread. Suffice to say, it was something that no innocent child should ever be asked to do. But in that moment of fear and confusion, I found the strength to defy Isaac. It wasn't easy, and for a time I feared he would never leave me alone. But eventually, his whispers faded into the darkness, and I was left alone once more. My parents never knew the truth of what happened those nights. Months passed without any sign of Isaac. I convinced myself that it was all a childhood delusion, a product of an overactive imagination trying to cope with the loneliness of a new home. Yet, as I grew older, a nagging feeling persisted, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. It was during my 13th birthday that Isaac returned. I had almost forgotten about him, buried his memory deep within the recesses of my mind. But on that night, as I blew out the candles on my cake, I felt a chill run down my spine, the sensation of being watched. I brushed it off as paranoia, blaming it on the darkness and the flickering candlelight. But as I climbed into bed that night, I knew something was wrong. The air in my room felt heavy, oppressive, as if a storm was brewing just beyond the horizon. And then I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. "Hello, old friend," it said, the voice sending shivers down my spine. I froze, unable to move, as the whispers grew louder, filling the room with their dark presence. Isaac was back, and he was more powerful than ever. His whispers were no longer just words. They were commands, urging me to do things I knew I shouldn't. I tried to resist, to push him away, but it was like trying to hold back the tide with my bare hands. Night after night, Isaac's presence grew stronger, his whispers more insistent. I couldn't escape him, couldn't find solace in sleep or sanctuary in the light of day. He was everywhere, a shadowy specter haunting my every waking moment. I became a shell of my former self, consumed by fear and paranoia. I stopped going to school, stopped leaving my room altogether. My parents grew concerned, but their words fell on deaf ears. They couldn't see Isaac. They couldn't hear his whispers echoing in the darkness. And then one night, I woke to find myself standing in the middle of my room with a knife clutched tightly in my hand. Isaac stood before me, his eyes burning with otherworldly fire. "Do it," he whispered, his voice cold and unyielding. "Do it, and we can be together forever." I wanted to resist, wanted to fight back against the darkness that threatened to consume me. But it was too late. With a trembling hand, I raised the knife and plunged it into my chest, the pain searing through me like a white, hot flame. As darkness closed in around me, I heard Isaac's laughter echoing in my ears. And as I slipped into unconsciousness, I knew that I would never truly be free from his grasp, that his whispers would haunt me for all eternity. I can still feel his presence lurking in the darkness, waiting and watching, biding his time until he can return once more. And I pray that he never can, for I fear that if he ever does, I may not have the strength to resist him again.